Okay, so now we're doing question 18 out of chapter 7, how countries gain from international trade. We have Japan and Great Britain, cell phones and digital music players, and we have 500 hours of labor. Before trade, well, let's just evaluate this for a second. So Japan has an absolute advantage in making cell phones. In 1 hour, they can make 22. Great Britain can only make 3. Japan also has an absolute advantage in digital music players. They can make 12 in the same time it takes Great Britain to make 6. But one of the lessons we learn is that even Great Britain has a comparative advantage in one of these things, and you compare the opportunity cost. In this case, Japan is not quite they have a preference to making cell phones. When Japan is making cell phones, they give up a little about half a digital music player. Whereas when Great Britain makes a cell phone, they are giving up 2 digital music players for every cell phone they make. So the cost of making cell phones in Great Britain is very high. So Great Britain does not have a comparative advantage in making cell phones. Japan has the comparative advantage in making cell phones. Interestingly enough, Great Britain has a comparative advantage in making digital music players because they only give up half a cell phone when they make a DMP, but Japan gives up close to 2 cell phones when they make a DMP. So their cost of making digital music players is very high. So Great Britain has the comparative advantage in digital music players, and that's why down here, when they start to trade, it's Great Britain that manufactures an extra 600 digital music players and trades it with Japan. This will reduce Great Britain's digital music players that they have for themselves down to 1,200. They'll give 600 of them away to Japan. But Japan is going to give 600 of its cell phones over to Great Britain. Now what happens is both parties are specializing and trading. And if we consider what happens here with their numbers, right, that Great Britain now, since it received 600 cell phones, no longer has to make any cell phones itself, can concentrate entirely on digital music players. And they're going to be able to get more than 600 digital music players out of the bargain. They're going to increase their production by twice as many. They're going to make 1,200 more digital music players because now instead of having to spend, let's think about this, how long did it take them to make 600 cell phones? It took them 200 hours. And that meant during those 200 hours, what Great Britain was doing is taking 500 hours and splitting it, 200 hours to make cell phones and 300 hours to make digital music players. Now they can spend the whole 500 hours making DMPs, which is going to increase their production to 3,000. But because they're trading away, since they're trading away 600 of that 3,000, it's going to drop to 2,400 that they're consuming, which is an increase of 600. So we're going to fill that in. And wait. The question is, Japan will be able to consume the same number of digital music players and more cell phones. But now we got to, if the answer was, what's Great Britain able to do? They're able to consume 600 more digital music players. But we got to do the same calculation for Japan. So Japan, prior to trade, were taking their 500 hours and they were putting what looks like 50 hours into making DMPs. Their 50 hours times 12 would be the 600 digital music players. And that meant they were putting 450 hours into cell phones. Now, since they're getting their digital music players from Britain, they can put those 50 hours to use with cell phones. So let's do the math here and we'll see what it looks like. So 50 hours, this is for Japan, times 22 would be equal to this times that. And what we have is they have 1,100 more cell phones, but they traded 600 of those away. So we're going to have to subtract the 600, and that means that their total is equal to 500 more. So when we come on down here, since the question was if Japan trades away 600, but they increase their production by 1100, then how many more cell phones will Japan be able to produce? Answer 500. Let's check that. Nice work. Thank you. Hope that was helpful.